Oh, hey, everybody. Welcome back. Week 10. I can't believe it. Here we are. Oh, what is this? May 14th. Good morning to you. If I've got it right, judging from what I've been doing in my yard, and hopefully with what you've been doing, we've got some shocking results, don't we? Now, like I told you last week during the announcements, or the recap, I'm sorry, not announcements. What am I thinking? We were going to talk about page, 54? I think that's what I told you. Huh. I'm kind of concerned here because I'm sure some of you are sitting back going, now, Wizard, sir, when are we going to get around to fertilizing? When are we going to get into the yeah, because aren't we supposed to be feeding once a month? Well, yes and no. Yes and no. See, I don't know where this idea came up because it doesn't exist in the organic world. I don't know where this idea came up that every month, every 30 days, 33 days, we're supposed to be putting down fertilizer. There's some question about that. Okay, there's some very hardcore question about that. And this is where, when you read the covers of the guidebook, it talks about saving you money and putting money back in your pocket for vacations. Your plants, as much as they are consuming, they're looking for minerals. Okay, they're looking for food that is going to produce. So they're looking for vitamins and minerals. All right, calcium being one of them, to make your plants stronger. And if you remember, we talked about Epsom salt being added to both, work your clay and what have you. Well, if any of you have paid attention, as you're putting Epsom salt down in your yard, you're picking up greener spots. And it appears to be where the Epsom salt is going. Well, that's because your grass is absorbing the minerals. Okay, and that's why it's so important to get to the clay. Now, next week maybe, I don't want to get ahead of myself here, and I don't want to speak out of turn. Next week maybe we'll kind of go into a little bit more on that. Maybe the week after. 10 weeks I've been pulling at straws for this kind of stuff and wanting to make sure that we were covering all of our bases as we're going. I also said that I was going to try and pull back by July, but there's a couple of interviews that I've done that I might play here instead. Because we covered some valid information, but I don't want to lose track of what we're doing here with this brand new yard. Okay. So as you're seeing greener areas in your yard, you're starting to understand that maybe it's not feeding. Okay, that is going to give me that green yard. Well, I mean, if you want a boost, there's a couple of things we can do. Stale beer is one of them. I know you're like, wait, there's no such thing. Well, now hold on. There are some brands out there that you won't drink, right? So maybe get a can or two. Dump them in a bucket. Let them go stale. Let them sit for weeks on end. It's the hops that we're after. There is something else that you can do. Now, I don't want to refer back to this. I want you to look at it in a slightly different light. Okay. We're talking about alfalfa. Now, alfalfa broken down as a feed and feed pellets. Now, in the book, I go into a little more description on how I discovered this and what I learned and what have you. But for sake of what we're dealing with right here, and we're worried about, our monthly feeding of our lawn, alfalfa fed to horses and fed to rabbits and many, many other things. They will tell you that's nature's steroid. Well, you know what's interesting? A lot of farmers grow this stuff in the winter and then plow it back into their fields because it's plant food. It's steroid building material for your plants. You're like, wait a minute, what did you just say? Right. This is a winter crop in most cases because it doesn't take anything out of the soil. It takes everything out of the air and produces this plant. A lot of people will grow this as a microgreen in their kitchen in a jar, which is a hint of water. And it grows like crazy. It's really, really neat stuff. But it's nature's steroid. Now, some of you may hear that and go, wait a minute, look, I'm not a health channel. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. I'm a gardener. I play in the dirt. That's where I live. All right. But if you're taking a steroid and Mother Nature has one available in nature, you make your choices. Microgreens may be the way to go. But as always, consult with a doctor first. Don't just go because, the Green Wizard said. No, we're talking about your plants. Okay, we're talking about your horses. We're talking about rabbits. We're talking about, other animals. My little helper at the barbecue munches on this stuff if I happen to leave the bag open, and it's not harmful in any way, shape, or form. I will use this stuff in my garden, and I profusely use it in the yard. Now, if things are going the way I think they're going, because I'm watching my yard and I'm working right alongside you, I'm seeing a lot of little holes starting to pop up all over my yard. As I get down near the soil and start looking, I'm seeing a lot of new holes. Well, that's the worms. That's the worms coming up at night, getting miscellaneous and going back down in the soil when the sun comes out. They're the most active in the dark, obviously. Not at night, in the dark. So like on a shady day, they'll be out because they're not baking in the sun, right? And the more you sweeten your soil, the more the worms will come in because the organic life is active, because that's what they're ultimately after. Neat thing is they'll eat Well, it appears that they eat leaves and dead grass and they'll eat anything that's in their way trying to get to the organic life. That's what people seem to miss. People want to say that, that the worms just ingest everything that's there. Well, they're actually after the organic life, not the organic material. Their body is designed to handle both and to produce incredible worm castings, which, as you also know, is another form of plant food. Worm castings is incredible for your plants. Worm casting tea, incredible for your plants. Talk about a green up solution. Wow. But so's composting. What I'm trying to insinuate here, as we're almost at the halfway point through the show, what I'm trying to insinuate here is that the next time you're at the feed store, pick yourself up a bag of alfalfa in the feed pellet size. Now, you heard me refer to it in its hay form to cover your yard and to cover your garden. And I had some very interesting results this past year in the garlic research that I do. I'm constantly growing garlic, giant garlic. I had a lot of excess, so I put it in my main garden this year and ended up with, when it started prior to the snow falling, I was probably at over a foot of this straw hay, feed hay out there. And of course, the between the sun and we had rain and the heavy snowfall that we had, it condensed it down to about a foot. And the garlic still worked its way up back in March 10th or so. I started to notice it coming through a foot of this stuff. So for some of you that, I've told that always make sure your soil is covered. Well, this may be your garden solution for the winter is alfalfa. And getting alfalfa in your garden and mixing it in, putting it in as you put your starter plants in. Flower beds, put it in as you put your new flowers in. Those of you that have got, returning bulbs every year, get alongside it. There's a lot to be said here for this organic material in the soil. Hint, hint, hint. Now, when you put this stuff down in its pellet form, you're going to be thinking, this is crazy. I'm taking handfuls of this little stuff and I'm just throwing it in my yard, just like I did with the salt. And I got these pellets all over the place. Now, what am I supposed to do? Well, get them wet. Or put them down right before it rains. Because these things are going to pop open and turn into like a dust. It's not quite dust, but it's ground down almost that fine. And whether you're watering it or whether the rain is carrying it, it's going to find every one of those aeration holes. And that material is going to go down in there. And over time, between the worms and organic life, this is going to be organic matter breaking down and feeding everything, including your grass. So you're going to be putting your grass on a steroid by the handful. You starting to put this together? So you don't necessarily need to be thinking about the idea of, oh boy, I need to get out there and weed and feed. I need to get out there and put my fertilizer down this month. I need to, no. You need to have organic materials, vitamins and minerals available to feed your plants through the organic life. So as we can get these in the soils and down into both the topsoil and the soil beneath and the dirt beneath and alongside that clay bed that's now decreasing, we're going to have a higher percentage ratio of organic material in our soils. Over time, we want to get to a percentage point of maybe 10, 15, 20, 25% organic material down in our soils, down there next to that clay bed that is decreasing in size. We want as much down there as possible, and those worms will take it. They'll pick those materials up and they'll go deep with them, because they also stockpile food for the winter. I've seen some really weird things down in the soil as I dig down. Full-size leaves, miscellaneous, never been touched, but they're down a worm trail, because the worms grab a hold of them, take them down there, wait for them to start decomposing, and then the worms go after them. Worms love a decomposing something or other. That's where composting comes in. Composting tea comes in. Your composted teas have got miscellaneous of this, that, the other, all becoming bioavailable to your plants. This is the direction we're going. So as we start looking at it on a slightly different level, you'll start to understand why I say you can save money going organic, because you're not spending money every month. You're spending money once a year. You may not even do it once a year. You may only do it every other year. Because as you remember, I've stated, your yard should be treated the same as your garden, because it's going to stockpile things in your yard that your grass is not consuming, that are going to become available to your garden. So as you treat your garden and you treat your yard, the excess in your yard is available to your garden. It's a rotating situation. Things just continue to feed. You can feed your garden through your yard, because that organic life will reach out and bring back what it needs. So start thinking about alfalfa. Now, for some of you, like North Carolina region and lower throughout the United States and other places around the world, you might start thinking that, come winter time, you still kind of have a growing season. You might want to run some alfalfa as a cover crop. If your grass isn't growing, alfalfa might. And you can just cut that down and get it back in the soils, or get it back in your garden beds, or get it back in your flower beds to be that extra added boost on top of the yellow powder we've talked about. Is it starting to come together yet? Are you starting to see things how Mother Nature sees things? Are you starting to piece together how you can enhance your situation in your yard and play it section by section, piece by piece, watching what's going on and giving it things to help Mother Nature along as we provide more in our ground? Let's just say ground. As we put more in our ground, organic life is going to utilize it and put it to use. Now, some of you are starting to see, especially here in May, you're starting to see flowers coming up. You're starting to see kids out playing again. You're starting to see dogs and animals running their paths and what have you. you may start thinking about, well, do I really want to boost some of these areas, or do I want to give them some way of protecting themselves? I'm going to leave you with this last little tidbit. Remember we talked a little bit about beer and the hops in the beer? Well, we don't want the alcohol. We want the hops. So and I know in some cases, some people are going to look at this and be, this is sacrilegious. You shouldn't do this. And oh my God, what a waste. And oh my God. And I understand. And if you ever meet me, I expect to hear how sacrilegious this was until you see the results. Now, normally, I say that when you are going to do this 2 or 3 days prior to a party in your yard. Whether it be little kids all playing in the playground and over there on the swing set, or in a rented bouncy house, or a bunch of adults around the pool out in the grass, laying out in the sun and having a good time and partying at night. And prep your yard for this. Beer is one of the products that we can utilize that will both strengthen, green up, and feed all the organic life, all the organic material, and our grass. It's like a boost of nitrogen while allowing the grass to relax so it doesn't get hurt with all the traffic. It's really neat the way this works. Now, I've tried this on Kentucky bluegrass. I've tried this on ryegrass. And the results remain the same every time. The traffic doesn't affect it. It pops right back up the next day without any watering, right after the party. So it doesn't matter. Well, obviously, if you're going to be playing baseball and people are going to be sliding and tearing the grass, I can't help you there, okay? But if we're only talking about a little bit of badminton or kickball with the kids or something along those lines, we're not going to have these kind of issues. Somehow or another, the hops, the remaining liquids, soften the stalks while feeding the stalks in our grass. Each individual blade gets greener and brighter while getting softer. Now, I wouldn't necessarily see you need to be out there doing this once a week. I'm not sure drunk grass is the way to go. Okay, how else do you refer to this? But the end result is that a day later, the grass pops back up. It forgives all the traffic and is nice, dark green the next day. It's really neat the way it works, and it doesn't stunt the grass. It doesn't slow the grass down. You can have that beautiful cut, and you can have your lines in the grass, and everything holds the same way by putting this stuff down. Well, what if you're not having a party? What if you just want to green up? Well, you can. There are other ways, but if you are getting ready for a big birthday party, let's say on the weekend, and it's Wednesday, and you're looking at your lawn going, well, I don't want to be cutting it first thing in the morning and have those grass clippings everywhere. So I'm going to have to get out there on Wednesday night and do it. Well, go ahead. Cut it on Wednesday night. Get ahead of yourself a little bit. Grass is going to be a little thicker. It'll appreciate it, believe me. And water it in with some beer and some sugar. And watch what happens over the next couple of days. Now, don't get excessive. Please don't get excessive. We're not trying to wash the yard. If you want it to absorb a little bit better, obviously a dash or two of soap will help to break that surfactancy and help it soak in a little bit quicker. again, it's got to be flat, stale beer. So you may want to think about some of those parties and gather up some of that stale beer left in the cans and what have you that may be laying around the next morning. The stuff down in the bottom of the trash bag. Some of that may be useful to you in your greening up of your yard. Now, I know some of you are going to want to test that theory. So, whether it be your tree lawn or that little section of grass next to your driveway that really doesn't get paid attention to, try it over there. You're going to appreciate the results. You're going to see the color difference. And it works in, like I said, I've tried it in 3, 4, 5 different types of grass, and it works every single time. It's a green up. Now, I know there's a category in here for greening up the lawn in a mixture. Got to be careful using some of that. As you'll see, I made mistakes using that. But at the same time, it greened up the lawn. So like I said, the Green Wizard's Guide utilizes the stuff around your house to save you money. So let's start changing the world. Let's start getting rid of some of that global warming. Let's start cooling off our own yards. Let's start putting money back in your pocket. Let's start changing this world 1 yard at a time, starting with yours. I appreciate your time, everybody. We'll talk to you next week. Have a great day.